This is a JTP Audio podcast.
Sometimes talking with friends feels like role-playing. Sometimes it feels like combat. Join us at the round table and roll initiative. This is Curmudgeons and Dragons. All right, hey, and welcome to the first ever episode of Curmudgeons and Dragons. What's going on, guys?
Hello.
Let's say hello to the round table. Why don't we roll initiative and we'll tell people who we are.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sounds
roll
delightful.
an initiative. We got 9 over here.
I got a 15.
I got the first nat one.
Oh,
on a natty one. I don't know if that like forces you to go first because like there's no set precedent, or if that
I don't think crits apply to initiative.
Yeah. All right. Justin, I think that's you
Crit.
then.
I thought go ahead.
Yeah.
Be free.
15. My name is Justin. I'm a human being that plays Dungeons and Dragons and decided to join this podcast where we're going to talk about it.
What's your history with D&D?
I've been playing since I was 13, 14. I started on 3.5, but did not really have, like friends when I was 13 or 14. So nobody to play with. So I didn't really start playing socially with other people until 5th edition, like 3 or 4 years ago. I've been, I'm the constant DM of my group. So I've been running over the last 3 years, like a few different homebrew campaigns. I'm currently running Curse of Strahd for a group of 5 9th level people. That should be coming to a close soon. And then I'm, never going to DM again as long as I live because I'm tired of it.
It's like graduating from you've been promoted to player.
I can't wait to finish my DM degree and then not have to do it again.
I think I'm next with a 9. My name is Jason Portizo. I'm producing this show. My history with gaming in general is, I'm huge into tabletop games, huge into board games.
Yeah, you are.
D&D specifically. You can kind of say I've been playing since middle school, but we did not play correctly. It was so that kind of counts.
Fun of it.
Does that count? If you play super wrong, do you just call it a shit homebrew?
Yeah.
House rules, dude.
Have you ever been on Roll20? There's a bunch of broken shit
I have
on
been
there.
on Roll20. Okay, fine. Fair. Counts. So yeah, I've been playing since middle school, but I didn't start playing like seriously and actually really trying to play until relatively recently. And now it's just another game. It's just something else to consume all of my time, and I love it. Jack, you're up.
Oh boy. So I'm Jack. I've been playing D&D for probably a collective, 10 or 15 years now. Started when I was 15, so almost 15 years. Warcraft is kind of what got me into D&D. I've been playing WoW, like World of Warcraft, since it came out, so a little bit longer than that. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to actually play as an orc instead of just doing it virtually. And so my first character I ever played was like an orc barbarian. And I've been big into tabletop games, and it's pretty much been my life. I've been a nerd since before I could remember.
Orc barbarian.
Yeah, it was good.
I like it.
Barbarians are great, man. You just get to punch stuff and ask questions later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I do that.
It's an ideal thing for me.
Yeah.
Just punch and then be like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Yeah. My first
Just
was
as
a
a
Tiefling
DM.
Rogue. It's just as stereotypical.
Yeah, I've DM'd a lot of sessions too. I actually almost prefer to DM just because I love getting into characters and actually role playing and stuff like that. So I get to do multiple characters in one session. So I usually end up being the DM whenever we have sessions, and I'll probably be like NPCs in games. And I don't know, it's fun DM and it's fun playing. I just really enjoy the game, and met a lot of good people through it. So, and then these 3 people, which are I guess good people, but we'll see.
2.5. I'm okay.
Jack's a really fun
real
DM. He's Jack is working on another podcast with me and a different group, which hopefully we should be releasing later this year.
Yeah, if I ever get free time again in my life.
Well, you just hired somebody, maybe.
That's going to open up a whole new world for me.
Yeah. But hopefully we'll be able to get that show out there later this year. But yeah, Jack's a really fun DM. It's going to be awesome. And then Josie on her natty 1.
That's me with my little nat one to start everything off. Hello, I'm Josie. I grew up as a humble little PC gamer because my parents were like, "You're not getting video game systems. You'll never leave the house." But then they got me a computer. So that didn't make sense. My first tabletop was a Warhammer 40K when I was 14 or 15 with a bunch of my friends from Second Life because I was one of those PC gamers. I didn't really start getting into D&D proper until I want to say I got into college, and I had a couple groups in college that I would play with. I've never had the blessing and curse of being a DM but I would like the opportunity
worse.
one day. Yeah, right?
Yeah, it's definitely more the second than the first.
But like, I have ideas for stories. I'm going to school for creative writing, so creating
you're natural
stories.
already.
Oh my God, creating stories for me is my favorite part of the whole thing. And like combat's fun too, but like role plays what I'm here for.
Yeah, the role play aspect of it is fun, and the running like 9 other characters in combat aspect of it is definitely
Exactly.
tiresome.
But like if
That
I
part's
just
work.
wanted to play combat, just keep playing combat, I would go and play Skyrim.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this should be a game about storytelling. This should be, a narrative, and hopefully
That's what it is. It's
everyone's
collaborative
on the same-
storytelling. Like,
Exactly.
So
And hopefully everyone's on the same page, and we're all.
Role-playing game.
hey.
Yes. But we've got some stories today of people who might not agree.
Oh,
with great storytelling. We got a couple cool themes planned for this show, and today we're going to be doing RPG horror stories. I love stuff like this. I love channels like Crit Crab was a big inspiration for this show. So we all dug through Reddit. We found some RPG horror stories, and let's bring these to the table and share them.
Yeah, let's do
You guys
it.
want to roll for it?
Sure.
Yeah, let's roll
Might as
initiative.
Let's roll
again.
for it.
If I get another 1, do I have to leave?
Let's find
I
out.
rolled a 20.
I get a 6. I
There you go.
survived.
4. And
I
Jack.
got a nice 20.
All right. Justin, you want to go first or last? We'll say
I'd
Crit
like to
gives you
go
choice.
last.
All right.
I got a nice short and sweet one. I'd like to close it out.
We'll say Crit gives you the choice.
Yeah.
There you go.
Jack with your 13.
All
tell
right.
me,
So the story I picked, I think, kind of spoke to my DMing, because I've had sessions that I don't think I've been this bad, but I have ignored players before. And this kind of rolled into how bad a DM can be and how bad a player can be at the same time and kind of ruin something for someone. So nothing too bad, but the story rolls as I played in a game under the first-time GM with a pretty self-involved player. He decided to roll up a ranger who was antisocial. Great. He liked to work alone and took every chance he got to split from the party. It was a bit awkward to deal with, but we got on. At some point, he picked up a ring of sustenance, and having the best perception in the group, he took up the night watch. He'd watch all night until early morning, then would sleep for his requisite 1 hour while the spellcasters were doing their morning rituals. All honesty, that kind of sounds like what my usual nighttime thing is: sleep for an hour and just go about my day. It's really good. It's healthy.
Yeah.
So one night he had heard something while on watch.
That's just art imitating life.
Yeah, just casual, good coping mechanisms, just alcohol and no sleep. Great.
Yep.
So one night he heard something while on watch. Instead of waking up the other characters like he should have, he left us asleep to pursue a sound. What ensued was a 90-minute in real life combat pitting him against a monster meant for the whole group to fight. The GM and this player were engaged and never once thought to try and wake up the other PCs in any way. We sat and waited for an hour and a half in real time for this to resolve. Everybody was pretty angry, and then the kicker was that the player successfully demanded that since the encounter involved only him, he should get all the XP. The GM, of course, agreed, and that put him about a half a level in front of the group. So that's my...
Did you say an hour and a half of real time?
So they sat at that table for an hour and a half, not playing, just the DM and that one antisocial ranger fighting a monster that should have been for about 4 people. He got all the experience from it, all the loot from it, and thought nothing was wrong with that. And the DM just moved along. Apparently,
The DM 100% should have been like, that's not okay.
a sound in the forest should have. That's kind of why I picked this, because there's so many ways to get around having. Because I mean, if you want to play an antisocial player and you want to play like the lone wolf ranger, the lone warrior, that's fine. But it's almost your job as a DM to find ways to include other people, even with this person. Like
Yes,
a tale of a good GM, you can have an antisocial player, but still include everybody at the same time.
Yeah, so when you go on RPG horror stories and stuff on Reddit and you read the comment sections, almost every story has just the same answer to any problem that comes up, and this is one of them that I'll give that for. It's the fucking DM's fault. Like,
yeah, like that player was
at no
playing his
point should
character.
they have allowed that player to just go for a 90-minute
And certainly
solo
not
fight.
at the end being like, hey, like I fought this all on my own because I refused to wake up the rest of the party.
Now, here's the
so I
thing.
want all
That's
the
the only
XP.
part of the story that didn't super bother me. Like, there was a ton of problems that led to that, but now that we're here, yeah, he's the only one that fought it. Like,
Yeah,
if you're going by XP,
But it
no
should
one else.
never have gotten
Oh,
to
yeah,
No,
that.
it should not. It should not have gotten that far. But because
Yeah.
they already got that far, that's the part
Yeah.
that didn't bother me that much.
So it's multifaceted. Yeah, because the other thing you get too is that in that story, I think that she points out that I think kind of went over my head the first time I read it, but now like reading it out loud, I kind of pick it up is that monster is meant for the whole party to fight. So as a DM, if you made a monster that one of your rangers could kill, you also made a really low CR fight that was supposed to be for the whole party. So
bad.
The more you read into it, the more I'm like, okay, the player's playing the antisocial part. He's kind of a jerk, or like he's kind of a dickhead for taking all the experience for stuff. But at the same time, like that DM could have said a sound in the forest wakes up the rest of the party. The DM could have made the encounter harder and probably gotten, really that ranger should have been knocked out. But in real life, I would have straight up
that on the DM.
I would have just talked to people and said, like, are we going to keep doing this? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you sit there for 90 minutes and just ignore the rest of the people sitting there with you?
Yeah.
Start dicking around.
I mean, end of the day, that's the GM's fault for planning not only a bad encounter, but having a bad session.
And the story doesn't say anything about like the ranger getting miraculous rolls or anything.
No, he just says he fought it for an hour. I mean, an hour and a half is a really long fight for anything. Sure. So you have to think that he probably was just running and shooting. Like
he's probably cure woundsing himself or just chugging potions and like if everyone's sleeping, it's probably stealing their potions.
People also tend to hyperbolize on the internet, so maybe it wasn't actually an hour and a half.
Are you telling me that if I read on the internet, it's not true?
No, I'm not breaking that illusion for you.
Every story we're reading today is 100% true, and you cannot change my mind about this.
My dad's an astronaut, and he's on the moon, and that's why I haven't seen him in a while. So there.
My dad's being a cowboy in Montana. He's definitely not in jail.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it wasn't too bad of a horror story. I feel like it's a good starter point, especially because
it's a good one to start with.
It opens up that one.
How would you guys as DMs handle that?
I'll go first, I guess. I honestly, that's a situation that I have been in. That's like why I joked before we started the podcast, like, oh, this sounds like it's about me. But I have had that happen before.
All of these stories are going to sound like all of us.
Yeah. I have had that happen where I've had sessions where it's just one player gets an inordinate amount of focus time on them just due to circumstances. But in a regard like that, if a big combat is coming up, the 90-minute solo combat is honestly, like you, Jason, the thing that bothered me the least about the story, because player choice, if you want to wake up your comrades, do it. If not, whatever. It's a role-playing game. We're telling a story. Sometimes you fight things by yourself.
Properly role-played that and be like, I don't need these guys. Like, then there's things leading up to it and of course the XP at the end that like are not terrible.
That's annoying as shit. But
it's annoying. But like if he really like sells the role play,
it
might not bother me that much.
I think at the end of the day, like if the group as a whole is upset with an antisocial player, it's up to the DM to make sure that everything is social, that you can't be allowing an antisocial character into the party. Like,
and the other thing is that like that player 100% could have continued the role play as like, I'm going to handle this on my own because I'm more antisocial. But then it's up to the DM to be like, okay, well, I'm not about to have this one player go into combat with something that was meant for the whole party, especially if it's going to take a really long time. So I feel like after like the 10-minute mark or something of just one-on-one combat, be like, hey, like you hear the sounds of fighting in the distance, and
that was what I was going to say. It's so simple to do passive perception checks, and eventually when someone rolls, I'm just like, okay, you hear a noise, a couple hundred feet from you in the forest. If you're fighting a monster that should have been for 4 people, it's not a small creature.
They're going to hear it.
You're going to hear it. It's very simple. That's why I'm putting this one on the DM more so than the player, is because it'd be very easy for him to say like, oh, you hear a noise because there's a giant, hour and a half long fight going on in the woods. You hear something and it wakes you up and you guys rush to see what's going on. Like, I think that it's okay to have antisocial players. Like, I like that people get really into roles and like they wouldn't talk to the party. Yeah. And I think that it's also on the player to understand that if you're going to play that type of person, you need to like commit to it, but also work in where you're not just ruining it for everyone else. Like you're role playing, but making it like have a good time for everyone else. But it definitely is on the DM to say like, okay, I have an antisocial player. He's going off in the woods. He's like, we've been playing with this antisocial player for a while. You learn his tendencies and you kind of figure out ways to say, okay, like I know you're going to go off on your own, but I want to involve the 3 other people playing. So they're not sitting at the table for an hour.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thumbs up your butt. Like, okay, you hear a noise, you wake up.
Yeah. It's on the DM to set the tone for the table. Like,
there's ways to make like an edgy loner type of character engaging in role play. Yeah. You can still play that character. You can actually absolutely have those character traits, but there's ways to include that and intertwine it with the rest of the party. Maybe you have another party member that's clingy and they annoy the crap out of each other. And that's actually like, there's so many like RP points that you can get into there.
There's so many things that you can do with an antisocial player with the other players being like, come on, have a drink with us. This, that, and the other thing. Like there's
tussle
so many
his hair a
ways
little bit,
make that. Yeah. But I feel like a lot of, not everybody, but a lot of people that end up playing as like the lone character have like Batman syndrome where they want to be like the main character.
And these are also usually players that they might be newer to tabletop games. That's not necessarily true, but they might want D&D to feel more like Skyrim. Or really any other video game where the show is really just all about them. That's a really easy
problem to fall into as well.
Absolutely. I've had many players that have fallen into that thing where they're expecting D&D to be like, video game-esque.
Right, and it's nothing but combat, and they turn it to murder hobos.
But like single player, they turn it into a single player game instead of a co-op or a multiplayer.
Yeah, it's like no, there's 5 of us. Like, this is not your story.
You're not all my companions that I can just make do whatever I want to further the story that I want to tell. You all have your own thoughts and opinions as well.
I also put a little on the players that were in this session have to speak up and be like, hey, we've been doing this for a while, and like we kind of know each other, so like, hey, maybe we do stuff now. And like, I would totally, if there was a situation like that, like I'm usually not a big fan of breaking the fourth wall in the game, but that's definitely a situation where I'd speak up and be like, hey, like, you got to figure something out. We've been sitting here for an hour not doing anything. Like, why do we come over?
Yeah. Like I would, at that point, I'd be like, I'm just going to go make some lunch or some shit. Like, I'm not going to be here.
Like
they wrote out like the 3-paragraph version of the story, but like, I'm really curious what the rest of the table was doing.
They just sat there. They were just on their phones and like watching combat. Like, I mean, they apparently they only had a few sessions together, but they all kind of knew each other. So they just figured, oh, this is like, he's just going to do this and it'll be over soon. And then it wasn't.
It's like, oh, Jeff's doing Jeff stuff again.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, just speaking from a personal like standpoint, I have like limited time as it is with the brewery. So if I can carve out like a few hours to play with people and an hour and a half of that is me sitting at a table, I get kind of pissed off with that.
As you should. And anytime like something massive like that is not including the whole party and like, and Justin, this is the point you brought up earlier where people do get like maybe even entire sessions kind of more devoted to them for roleplay purposes. That's totally fine. Every character really should for storytelling reasons should have some sort of like spotlight or a close up part of the story arc. And that's totally cool. Yeah. So if it's stuff like that and like, one player is like just a little more forward for a whole session and everyone kind of knows that, okay, my time's coming up and it's just not today for storytelling purposes. That's awesome. Totally fine. In fact, you totally have my permission to do that. I don't mind sitting back for 20 minutes while I listen to, our paladin's backstory for a bit.
Plot.
Yes, actual plot.
Right? If it's something that's like the
not
meat and
90-minute
plot,
combat though.
I'm cool with it.
Yeah, plot, party roles. Like, parties typically have like a talker and then a tank and people that fulfill certain archetypes of like fantasy storytelling. So I have no problem listening to somebody carry on a conversation with an NPC.
Agreed.
For
90
for a while,
minute combat,
an hour and a half.
Come on.
That's just it's bad play by the whole group, but I would put that mostly on the DM.
I'd go GM surrounding players and then the player itself.
Yeah,
this is absolutely way more the DM's fault than anything else. And I think
100%. The DM takes like 85-90% of the blame.
That's mostly on the DM.
I'd put like 7.
Because at the end of the day, the DM's the one that makes the decision to be like, no, you're right. Like this is going to take a really long time.
This is cool.
Like,
they are gods.
This is fine. No, like, I think the way to fix this, Jackie mentioned like rolling passive perception for it. I think like anytime the combat would have made noise, like if someone actually connects with a hit, if you swing a dagger or sword or whatever, like rangers usually have like short swords. So if it's like a short sword hitting it, that noise, then all the sleeping players would roll some sort of check, whether it's like passive perception or
like he gets hit with an arrow and the beast or whatever kind of monster they were fighting lets out like a visceral scream of pain or something. And everybody's
you find reasons to make a whole bunch of noise.
Yeah.
And then you
it's
have
not hard. You're in a forest, break, trees move. Like it's not difficult.
It's not unrealistic that you would wake up in that situation.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So they roll for it. If depending on their stats, if they're heavy sleepers, but if they make their perception, they wake up and roll initiative. And now they're in the fight.
I wake up if like a car drives past my house at like 5:30 in the morning. Like, they're gonna wake up if there's a big ass fucking monster fighting a ranger in the woods like 100 feet from your tent. Like,
yeah. I don't know.
And then when it keeps going on for a while, like every round, you give a bonus to the roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like after the third or fourth time something's made a really loud noise, it's like, okay, like you get advantage to wake up and be like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah. And as it goes, like they're more susceptible to waking up. Like there's really cool, really engaging ways that this could have been handled. And instead they chose to not at all.
The pseudo thought on top of that though is, so I am always against this of players rolling checks like without it being called for them. In this situation, if combat's going on for an hour, do you as a player just roll a die and say, listen, I rolled excellent? Like, do you start talking to the DM like,
nah,
you just let it go?
No, I even as a player, yeah, unless a roll is called for, I would never.
It's unless you were under a spell or something that you were that he was like, oh, before I leave, I'm gonna cast like silence on you guys so you can't hear shit. Like, it doesn't make sense.
If he took the time to do that, power to him.
Yeah, like if it's part of the story, if you make it part of the story, I don't have a problem with it. But if it's just like bad management of the story, that's when I kind of like
if he's sneaking out with the intention to go be the edgy loner, and he takes the time to cast silence and pass without trace and things like that.
Hey man, that's good role play at the end.
Yeah,
of the day.
that's great. I
Excellent
love
roleplay.
that.
I would probably actually still do the wake up checks, maybe with disadvantage.
Yeah.
Just so that there's some sort of player interaction and a little bit of realism to this. Like,
well, because it sounds like it didn't actually give the other players the opportunity to even. Because I don't know if you can tell, but I would like to think that. So after like 10 minutes, I would be like, am I actually going to be doing something this session, or should I just leave?
Like, I would like to think that as a player, I would pipe up at some point and just be like, hey, that's a lot of noise. Can I like roll to see if I wake up?
Yeah.
I would at least ask if I could roll. Like, no, give people the out, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, that just sounds like a boring game.
Yeah, it sounds like a bad session, just in general.
I don't think I would come back after that session. Because like even if like the next session I was the one that was like getting an hour and a half of just me, that's not fun. I don't want to just talk to the DM if there's 3 other people in the room. Yeah,
that's a lot of pressure, by the way. Imagine an hour and a half and he lost the fight. Oh, yeah. Imagine all that time.
Hey, dude, that's like the Yoko of the Beatles for D&D.
The rest of the party would get to go on though.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, well, I guess he's gone.
Because like, we all get to do an hour and a half. If it was something, can I please get back to sleep now?
Yeah, I figured that was a good story to start off with. Nice light, blame the DM kind of vibe, and then.
I love starting things off with bad DMs.
That was great.
Josie, I think you're next.
Am I? With a 6, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sitting on a 4 here.
Oh,
4.
Alrighty. Yeah. So
I would not have woken up.
My story is called Kobold Pulls an Avengers Endgame Maneuver. So I'm currently running Rime of the Frost Maiden, and I have a party of about 7 at level 6. I have a magic item vendor that I place in all my games to give the players access to magic items they are wanting and whatnot. The vendor is a devil of an unknown origin to them and often accepts deals as trade for magical items. These deals range from personal favors for him to selling your soul. No one has ever picked this option. One of my players, who is playing a Goliath Rune Knight fighter, recently lost her arm to a T-Rex. The devil could offer a magic prosthetic in return for a favor. She accepted. About 4 sessions go by when the devil decides to cash in on the favor. The party was to travel up to Avernus to slay a rival devil for him. He owed the devil a deal and did not want to pay up. The party accepted and went to the portal to hell. Once they arrived, they found themselves on the shores of the Styx and could see the blood war raging on miles away. They were currently in front of some time-forgotten ruins where the devil they were hunting had set up base. Once inside, they found 2 horned devils, each guarding a door. After some short conversations, the guard let them pass, knowing they wouldn't come back alive. Each door led to the same place, but had a spell on each door where one had sounds of laughter and joyous sounds, while the other had sounds of pain and misery. After going through the happy door, they realized they led to the same place and surmised it was just a dumb devil game the 2 horned devils played. Then they entered the throne room with a massive pit fiend sitting atop the throne with multiple tortured souls surrounding him. The fight ensued, and nearly half the party was very injured or close to death after about 6 rounds, when our beloved kobold hatched a plan. The player turns to me and gives an evil grin and asks, "Would you allow me to jump in his asshole?" I say, "Why not? You're a kobold and the devil is literally 5 times the size of you." I have him roll athletics.
Oh my god.
Nat 20. So the kobold climbs up the pit fiend's ass and begins to shred his sphincter with daggers. The fiend is already close to death, and our Goliath fighter got the killing blow. Her devil-made prosthetic essentially gave her an eldritch blast on her fist. It dealt a D10 damage and pushed the creature hit by it 10 feet away. After gut-punching the fiend to finish it off, the force of the punch rocketed the kobold out of the fiend's ass and into another party member. The TLDR says, Kobold pulls a Thanos Ant-Man situation in the weirdest D&D session I've ever run. I love this so much.
I didn't realize this was going to go in the Ant-Man and Thanos' ass direction.
I told you it would involve assholes. I told you, I warned you.
I thought you meant the DM.
As Paul Rudd said, a missed opportunity.
Yes,
It really
absolutely.
was. But you know what? That kobold saw that opportunity and he fucking took it.
I think, assholes aside, the coolest part of that story is a player lost their arm to a T-Rex.
I was waiting for
that's-
someone to
Focus on-
interrupt me and be like, hold on, wait a second. Like, what the fuck's that about?
But you
Because my answer would
hold
be
the
like, I don't
goddamn
know.
door here. Are there stat blocks for T-Rexes?
I don't know.
Wait, okay.
Maybe.
Time out. We're going to focus on the T-Rex, not the kobold up the butt. I mean, the T-Rex is like nothing compared to that.
Let's just take it step by step here.
I'm just going in
The kobold
order
comes
here,
later.
okay?
The kobold didn't start this story. The kobold was just there for it.
Yeah.
I love campy campaigns. I think stuff like that is really what makes it really fun to play. Like just stupid shit like that. I had played a campaign kind of recently where me and another half orc were attacking this thing, and we're like, yo, you guys want to see some wild shit? Because I played a 6-year-old half orc barbarian, and I was like, I climbed down the thing's throat, and we just like climbed inside of this.
6 years old?
Yeah.
Okay.
So half orcs reach maturity at 14.
I don't know. Yeah, so that's why I'm like 6. Okay.
Yeah, and I was like that's like a nice little like.
It's a little child.
Yeah, it was. She was a
it's a child.
half orc with ADHD that it was just so hard to get her to stay on task.
That sounds like a fucking nightmare.
Sounds like a regular orc, actually.
Yeah, it was good. I would just run around with onions in my bodice and offer them to people.
Which was the fashion at the time.
It was the fashion at the time, and it actually saved us at some point. I found a room full of captured people by offering somebody an onion, and they were like, "Thank you, small child. Like, you're gonna hang out with me now." But like stupid campy shit like that makes the game interesting to me anyway.
Absolutely.
And so to be like, yo, can I like jump into that monster's butthole? Like if I was the DM, I'd be like, yeah, go for it. I'd like to see you try. And then to get a nat 20 to do it is just the icing
Nat
on
20
that cake.
on a jump inside an asshole check.
That's like the least weird part of the story, I feel like.
But like,
as well.
We're
like
talking about the
T-Rex,
magical item stuff
the
as well.
T-Rex ate the
Yeah.
Goliath's arm, and so she
I mean, yeah,
doesn't use
sometimes you lose
superpowered
limbs
arm.
in D&D. It's
Well,
there's a
that
table
was the
for that
magic
somewhere.
item.
If you're going
that
to lose
she
an
got.
arm, it might as well be to a T-Rex.
Yeah, right. And like honestly, I
What
don't
else do you
have
lose
a
to,
problem
gangrene?
with like the magic vendor being like, "Oh my god, I have this enchanted prosthetic for you, but in exchange for that, you're gonna have to probably."
Hey man,
kill
that's
this
good
demon
DMing.
eventually."
Like, yeah, here's an arm,
And
so you're not
there is a whole like
handicapped
section
player.
for there's a whole section for prosthetics. I think that's relatively new.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's at
like,
a Tasha's or
like
something, I think, because Rune Knight is at a Tasha's as well. It was
Yes.
just play.
is it that recent? I have
Rune Knight
Tasha's.
was
I
play
didn't
test
really-
before Tasha's came out.
Okay. I didn't read Tasha's cover to cover. I kind of just went straight to the section I needed.
I haven't read it cover to cover, but I got it. It's a nice class.
I kind of skipped straight to the Plague Doctor section and it's like, okay, yeah, I got everything I need. $30 well spent.
So I guess
God
my
bless
question
Plague Doctor.
is, I kind of lost track of the story a little bit. So the monster they were fighting was like huge, right? Like,
It was a huge monster.
so they
It was
jumped into the
already-
monster's asshole.
It was already mostly dead, so like they'd been fighting this monster for
Okay.
a while.
And what
And
was it
then the
again? Did they
kobold-
say what the monster was?
Let me take a look. Yes, it was a pit fiend.
That doesn't sound that huge to me, so I find that a little suspect that a Rune Knight of probably
no.
medium size would be able to jump into a pit fiend's ass.
No,
the
a
kobold
kobold.
jumped into it.
Oh, kobold. So,
A kobold. The Goliath
kobold.
punched
I thought
it.
you'd been saying cobalt the entire time.
Oh,
I was
kobold.
very
I'm sorry.
confused by that.
No, I got that weird,
Kobold. Okay.
I got that kind of like New York thing going on. Sus.
I got Pit Fiend stats pulled up here.
That's what I'm looking at too.
You
It's
got
a
AC
huge
19,
monster,
HP
right?
300.
Yeah, it's large.
So yeah, I could see a kobold
Oh, there it is. It's the first thing under his name. Yeah, large fiend.
Yeah.
climbing on in there.
Oh, it's only large. Then yeah, I find the crawling up the asshole a little suspect in that degree. If it's small to large, but
Yeah, but they rolled a 20. Doesn't that mean they get to do whatever impossible
they get to
things
do
they want?
whatever they want.
Yeah,
because they
that's
rolled a
honestly.
nat 20.
There's always one downside of D&D in my eyes is you can say the stupidest thing that you want to do, but if you 20 it, you 20 it. There's unless I 20 something back, like you just do it.
Yeah, that's an aspect of that's game to game. Like I know a lot of people do like outlandish crit fails and shit too. I don't really
Crit fails, I don't really mess
fails in
around
my
with.
games. It's
I am
just like, hey,
absolutely-
you
Crit
failed.
fails should be fun.
I'm absolutely pro fumble chart.
Outside of combat, I use it. In combat, I won't penalize crit fails, but
Oh, I
Yeah.
won't. Like, it depends. Like, if you're a ranger or something, and you go to shoot a monster or whatever, and you crit fail, and like your party member is standing next to the monster, like they might have to roll to dodge
Occasionally,
it.
yeah. I'll do that if you get more than one crit fail, like per combat. But yeah, I try not to, just torture my fucking players if they keep crit failing outside.
I feel
combat.
like if I have a 1 in 20 chance of just cutting something in half, I should probably also have a 1 in 20 chance of dropping my weapon on my toe and taking a damage.
Yeah, and that's like the extent that it should.
Yeah, it's not going to be like, like the spell backfires, you take 5d8 damage.
Yeah. So I'm going to be very honest. I think my biggest gripe is just from a strictly medical background. That kobold would not have enough room in there to take out his sword and start cutting stuff up.
Yeah, unless he jumped with the daggers first.
Yeah, but even jumping with the daggers.
So from an anatomical perspective, I don't know much about pit fiends. Do they also have the internal sphincter or just the external one? Because if they have the two of them,
I got the stat block pulled up here. Hang on a second.
I don't think it's going to tell you about their sphincters.
It looks like they probably have. I mean, they have a tail, so they probably have one sphincter.
Tail, no sphincter stats.
What a shame. They should really
Christ,
incorporate
this is
that.
CR20 monster.
This is a moment for me where D20 or no D20. It's one of those things where I'm like, physically, you cannot do this.
Yeah, that's.
For me, this goes back into what we were saying before about this being a more comedic campaign. Is the rest of the campaign lighthearted and cartoony enough to where this doesn't stand out as being a completely off the wall moment? If the rest of it is like dark and brooding and serious and a little more Gotham and a little less Metropolis, that can seem super out of place and like kind of take you out of the immersion and all kinds of other bad stuff. But if this is like,
this campaign doesn't seem very like funny though. She's talking about like blood wars and gates to hell and magical.
It's Rime of the Frost Maiden, which is not an inherently funny campaign.
No, but I don't think there's many campaigns that are inherently funny. It's just what you do with them.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm running Strahd now, and it's outlandish as shit. Like the shit that they're getting up to now.
Like I'm cool with the magical items I can get around, the T-Rex you can homebrew, but it's just something about like getting in there and cutting stuff up, and that's how you do it. And then you get punched out. Like it just, I know a 20 is a 20, but this is just from a DM standpoint. Like
it doesn't sound like a horror story though.
If you're
no, I think it was just like I can't believe my players fucking did this.
I think you're missing the huge clue here is that they're already at the point where they're homebrewing T-Rexes.
Yeah, but you can.
So we're all that already puts us into some sort of cartoony category. We're not a 0 on the cartoon scale. So if you're already out T-Rex, climbing up a butt is not super out of the question, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I know T-Rexes are in one of the expansions for like monsters.
Oh no, it's in there. It's actually so. This is not a homebrew. This is you can.
Yeah, it's It's a huge beast, unaligned.
Yeah. So they didn't even homebrew a T-Rex. All they did was homebrew a kobold up a demon's butt.
There are worse things.
All right, that's fine. Whatever. Yeah, crawl up the demon's butt.
I picked this story because I thought it was.
Butt.
Yes, you're right. I know. I picked this one because I thought it was fun.
Oh, it's definitely fun.
I appreciate a little humor in the campaign.
Hey man, at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with butt play. So
no. Even pit fiends can have a little butt play.
Pit fiends are people.
If they like the
disclosure, pit fiends are also not people.
Don't kink shame your pit fiends, people.
Yeah, guys, it's 2021. Let a pit fiend do what it wants to do.
It's perfectly natural. Whatever a consenting pit fiend. Although it didn't sound like
this wasn't.
So then there's where we need to get into the conversation. There, that's
the kobold also didn't consent to get
the role playing section.
The pit fiend like shot him a cursory glance, like, "Hey, what are you doing back there?"
Be like, "Hey, how's it going?" So they had been fighting this for about 6 rounds, and half the party was very injured or close to dead. So this kobold did this end game maneuver to like save the party, and like I can kind of see
maneuver is a great word for that, by the way.
Yes,
it is a maneuver of some sort. Yes,
there's certainly not a lot of maneuvering around in there. That's for certain.
I think this is a dangerous territory for us to be talking about in our first episode.
I'm sorry, I brought butt stuff in too early.
Little surprise butt play.
Yeah, it's the downfall of every one of my relationships.
If you're a literal actual fiend, maybe it's not so bad.
I mean, yeah, it is a fiend.
Yeah.
I feel like if he's got to deserve it on some level.
And plus, it had almost just killed the
Or
rest of the
am I
party.
victim blaming at this
What
point?
was the pit fiend wearing? Is what I want to know.
I don't think they wear anything. That's
Okay,
just
now
how
we're
they
in
live their
dangerous
lives.
That's what I'm getting at.
That's just how they live their lives. Leave them alone.
Josie, excellent pick for the story. That's fucking
That's
great.
a great fucking story.
That was good.
I'm almost embarrassed to bring mine to the table now because there's no butt play in this.
I mean, yeah, that's why I went first, dude. I didn't have to back anyone up. I just went first. And, that's great.
There can't always be butt play. You got to switch it up a little bit.
All right, my story is more just an example of just bad playing. There is a really bad DM in this story. So this is the story of the cleric who refused to heal. Story goes. This one happened a few years back now, but I sometimes still shake my head in wonder at the experience. I joined a new group at a localish FLGS. The new DM, a few new players, a couple of experienced ones. I discussed rolling a Goliath cleric, had an idea for a backstory, etc. Another player pipes up that he really wants to play the cleric, and he has, in his words, an amazing backstory ready to go. Character set, ready, and everything. I'm not too fussed up and end up rolling a bard. Another player wanted to roll druid, but Mr. Cleric objected on the basis that the druid's healing abilities would infringe. I think you would say infringe. What the hell's infringe? I'm just going to read that again. Another player wants.
I was going to say, not everybody on Reddit has English as their first language.
Bro, this is Reddit. Another player wanted to roll druid, but Mr. Cleric objected on the basis that the druid's healing abilities would infringe on his role as a cleric. DM rules and asks the druid to roll another class. He does begrudgingly. First session, I take a hefty hit in combat and I take a hefty hit in combat and could do with some healing. Mr. Cleric refuses. Goes on a 15-minute sermon about his god Kalemvor and that any healing magic prevents souls from being delivered to the afterlife. Therefore, this cleric refuses to use healing magic. The cleric, who stopped another player from rolling druid because a druid can heal, I'm thankfully able to pick apart his weak logic and convince him that I'm not in danger of death, so healing me now wouldn't prevent my journey to Kalemvor when the time is right, and that by healing me, we can work together to deliver more souls to his god. Mr. Cleric agrees and heals me. Now, every time another character needed another healing, we would have to beg. If a character went unconscious, it was tough. It was up to the rest of us to save that party member. Mr. Cleric, of course, was more than happy to heal himself, quote, as Kalemvor would want me to remain on the mortal plane to conduct his works. We raised it with the DM, and he doesn't want to interfere with Mr. Cleric's well-thought-out roleplay. I end up dying and roll a druid, promising not to take healing magic. I stay true to that promise for a session or two until a near-death experience awakes a newfound respect for life in my character, and I rewrite my spell list to include healing. This pisses the cleric off massively. Our characters argue over healing people.
Good, yeah, I'm fucking glad.
Yeah, good. Our characters argue over healing people, and we eventually agree that I would only heal those who are not beyond help. Mr. Cleric also states that he would always refuse my healing. Not a problem. Mr. Cleric ends up going down, and we all watch as he fails death save after death save. By this point, he's out of character, demanding healing. I refuse, reminding him that he made me swear never to heal him. The cleric dies. This breaks the player. He jumps up from the chair, shouting that we've all sabotaged his character, ruined his roleplay. He storms out of the shop, shoving a display stand over, resulting in him being banned from the store. I didn't last much longer with the group after that, mainly due to the DM, but that's a story for another day. There's so many places this went wrong.
Something that could have avoided that entire thing. You never, as a DM, tell your players they can't do something because another player doesn't want them to.
Yeah,
the whole point of D&D is an open
number
world.
one could have prevented this whole thing.
Yeah, like that's insane to me. That's another thing with the DM.
Bad DM, bad player. Like,
yeah, but it's I put it way more in the DM because the player is playing the character he laid out. Which another thing too is the DM should have probably vetted okay, what's your backstory?
Yeah, tell me about this character that is a cleric.
But it also sounds like it was at a game shop, so it was kind of like a last minute.
Yeah,
hey,
game shop games as well.
Right.
Tend to be hit or miss. I feel like.
Yeah, it says it's a new group at a local-ish game shop. It's a new DM.
That can be
a couple
real
new players and a couple
hit or
experienced
miss.
ones.
Dude, if I was a player and I ever saw a DM say, "Hey, you can't do this because this guy doesn't want you to do it," and I didn't know anybody, I'd be like, "Oh, cool, I'm gonna go to another session then. You guys have fun."
Yeah,
I don't want anything to do with that.
Hey, man, I have a character that I play that is a devout worshiper of Kalemvor. I don't understand where this fucking cleric is coming from.
Yeah.
With refusing to heal because it cheats Kellamvor out of your soul or something in the afterlife.
In the Reddit, I don't have the Reddit comments pulled up here, but one of the top things on the Reddit comments was saying that the cleric guy clearly just read that Kellamvor was a god and then just stopped reading.
Yeah. Kellamvor is a were-jaguar, lawful neutral god of death. Like,
yeah, he doesn't
there's
even
a lot
when
to
they die.
unpack
They're
there.
coming to him at some point.
There's a lot to unpack there, but really just the basic thing about Kellamvor is that he hates necromancers, but he's not opposed to healing magic. So honestly, I'll put most of that on the player. That's bad roleplay.
It's absolutely bad roleplay.
Yeah.
And then to use that to
Especially to tell somebody else
game.
that they can't roll up a healer character if
That's-
he's going to withhold healing from people.
Bullshit.
Like, you
Why do you want to
said
play in
that.
that session?
Like I had played a campaign with a tiefling cleric who was our healer, who would she didn't want to heal people. She didn't like being touched. She didn't want to touch other people. And like, if you put your hands on her, she would hellish rebuke you. But like, she would heal people and be like, if I save you from dying, you owe me a life debt, which is a really fun way to fucking play.
Yeah, some
Sure.
wookie stuff.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, I played I think my big thing that you can take away from a lot of horror stories is players have to have a lot more player pride. Like, if you don't want to have play in a session, just don't. Like, people aren't going to judge you for it. And if they do, fuck them. But I played a bard, and we started at level 1 in a military academy. I was excited to play a bard. It was my first time playing. And it was with a group of people I didn't know. So we started playing, and we're competing for the top bunk. Like, it was just we just all met each other. Who sleeps on the top bunk? I wanted the top bunk. So as a bard, I had weighted and marked cards, so you can kind of cheat with them in my repertoire. And the DM knew 2 of the other players, didn't know me and didn't know the other guy. And I was playing against someone he knew. And so as I'm winning hand after hand to win the top bunk, he tells the guy, without having him roll for anything, "Oh, you noticed something funny about these cards?" And I was like, "Come on, man."
No, that's shitty.
And I fly out the next session. I just said "Hey man, I just wasn't a good fit for me. I wish you guys all the best moving forward. Feel free to do whatever with my character you want. I'm just going to dip." And I just dipped because you're playing a bard and you're not even letting me use cards or be fun.
The whole point of bards is to be a fun character, I feel like.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, if I was ever a player in that situation and I heard a DM say, "You can't play this because this guy's going to," and I heard the backstory and refusal to heal and all that stuff, I would have just taken healing.
It's horseshit. Yeah.
And I don't think,
I think we're done here.
The thing is when he described his character, he described him as a healer, and then once gameplay started, he was like, "Oh no, I won't heal you."
Yeah, that's just somebody you shouldn't play Dungeons and Dragons with.
I think by the fact that
At
he
the end of
stormed
the
out of
day.
the store by turning display stands over. I mean, we've all hung out at game stores on local levels and stuff, and no matter how much time you spent in a game store, you've run into this guy.
Yeah, 100%.
There's always that little sniveling, guy,
Mr. Neckbeard.
Yeah, and I hung out in game stores.
If you're gonna
I spent a lot
walk
of time
out
in
of a
game stores
store
over
and
years.
trash it,
It's a point to be made, especially with game store games and shit, that a lot of people play Dungeons and Dragons. This game attracts a lot of fun, creative people, and people make good friends over this game. But it also attracts, not so great people as well.
Well, it attracts people who think they can do whatever they want and just disregard
people that are trying to live in a
things or
power
other
fantasy.
players and
just go play Skyrim, guys.
On the worst end of the nerd spectrum, these are people who have no control in their lives. They're usually bullied and things like that.
Yeah.
Or worse from
Try
home.
to do that in the game.
And it sucks. But the thing that you run into is they're bullied and then all that. I mean, in a weird way, all he's doing is bullying the rest of the party and playing how he wants to play. And I mean, it sucks that happened, but it's not a way to get over it. It's not a way to meet people. It's just
when the power dynamic in the rest of your life is so one-sided against you.
You want to fantasize about it shifting it the other way.
Exactly. The fantasy now
I feel
is
that's
having
why
that power.
Yeah. I feel that's why a lot of stories, I'm glad none of us have taken any of the rape or pedophilia stories from RPG horror stories for today.
Yeah, I'd rather that
because that's
not be on the show.
95% of what comes up on there.
And there's a lot
just
of it.
sad and disturbing.
It's upsetting.
It's awful how pervasive it is in this community.
But to just scroll through D&D or RPG horror stories and to just see how many of them have warnings for sexual assault and stuff, and just other players harassing female players. Because I had that problem.
As soon as they say bard, I'm like, nope, I know where the story's going. Not reading any bard stories today.
The bard tries to fuck everybody. Oh my God.
Yeah, but you can do that tastefully though to the NPC.
You can.
I know I do.
Yeah.
My
Like
main
Candle,
player is a
little George Michael.
Yeah.
You know, I cast magic hand, you cast magic hand. You can do it nice.
whatever.
just-
You can play that tastefully.
It's just two dudes on opposite sides of the room casting mage hand on each other. There's nothing.
yeah, it's fine.
Nothing wrong
Whatever.
with that.
Who cares?
What's a casual mage hand between bros? What's a mage hand between bros? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody's getting hurt. It's all just a
It's
good
not like it's your
time.
hand, man. It's fine.
It's a mage hand.
It's like the stranger.
Okay, wait. I have a question about mage hand. Do you
Go ahead.
think bards use that instead of using their other hand so that it feels like somebody else?
Yes, that's the
That's a stranger mage
That's
hand.
the bard
I
stranger.
don't think so.
I would 100% use mage hand in such a way.
D&D. I really can't get over the audacity of that guy in that game. I mean, that's a true
Fuck that guy.
horror story because it ruins it for literally everyone else. It was
Yeah.
allowed, and then the guy like broke stuff. Like that's like a classic. Like
Yeah. I hate that player. I would
Like,
never want to
piece
play
of
with that
shit.
player.
I
have played
I
with that
really
player.
can't believe that the DM was just like, yeah, that's fine.
yeah,
That's some
Right.
that's some bullshit.
So wait, because all of you guys have been DMs before. How would you have handled that? Just been like flat out, no, you can't.
At the beginning of the story when the one dude wanted to be a druid, I would have been like, yeah, that's fine. Play whatever you want.
yeah. Because if everyone else is cool, then one
It's
guy
a
will.
game. You can play whatever
Yeah.
class you want. Like,
Yeah.
I've not DM'd before, but had I DM'd this session and one guy goes, "Hey, I want to be a cleric." What was he saying? That was a Goliath cleric. I think that could have been awesome.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
And the other guy goes, "No, I'm going to be the cleric." And I think that-
Immediately as a DM,
I
for me,
would have said to the little sniffly player, be like, cool. So you guys are at odds with each other. That's gonna be for some great role play.
Honestly,
we got
that's
two
what
clerics,
I love.
whatever.
Now
I
leave
love
me
two
alone.
clerics in a party, especially if they've got different deities that they work with.
Yeah,
Oh,
dude,
yeah,
it's
you
fun.
can be a battle paladin so easily. Like it's not hard to be a battle cleric. My big thing is that like I would say 85% of the games that I've been involved in, I've DM'd. So I've DM'd way more than I've played.
I feel you.
But that's like such a telltale sign of this is not going to be a good session is when one of your players is trying to railroad the other players.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I get as a DM, you railroad some story, but the second I see that, I would just like straight up be like, listen, man, like it's D&D. And especially at a board game shop where I don't know any of these people, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, you got to tell the other people who came here to have a good time and want to play the characters they thought of. Because you can even tell the guy rolled the druid as his other character. Like he played
He'd
that anyway.
already
He
had
obviously
it,
wanted
yeah.
to play it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That is just something that myself as a dungeon master would just not allow to happen at my table. Just be like, nope, fuck you. You don't get to decide what somebody else is going to play. I get to decide, and I say everybody can do whatever they want.
Yeah,
Right.
100%.
Now, also depending on how regular these guys were at this shop, the DM might have known that the bad cleric has a propensity for violence and flipping tables and stuff, and maybe just wanted to dodge the bullet.
Potentially.
Maybe just don't walk into a game store and choose violence.
Yeah. I almost thinking to your point, Jason, if you're going to be a DM, you almost have to have the wherewithal to say, like, if you know that person's like that it's almost your job in that situation that other players who came there for the first time or second time to play don't get screwed over because he was having a bad time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, no, but there is a very, I'm not even going to say a fine line, a really thick line of being like, hey, let's all just appease him so he doesn't freak out. And, letting the cleric player know that like, okay, it's time to be an adult.
Yeah.
You're going to have to interact with other people at some point in your life.
See, that's why I always felt bad because I feel like, I've been playing this game for a long time and thankfully I was, I wasn't, large like I am now, but I was a tall dude in high school, so I didn't get bullied too much. But D&D and video games, board games, however you look at it, get a bad name because of stuff like this. And it's such rare occurrences though, that it sucks seeing when things like this happen because in my head, if no one really stopped that, I'm imagining that those players at a board game shop might have been first time D&D players. And this is their first
And you
experience.
said a lot
But
of them were, yeah.
Yeah.
it's hard to get over that first bad experience because you're like, I put
You're
all
like,
this
I don't
effort,
want
all this
anything to
time
do
into
with this
stuff.
anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get away from the culture and, I've been doing this my whole life and I've seen plenty of that stuff, but I've always been drawn back into the culture, just, playing WoW and stuff. But if I had saw that in my first session, I think it would have been really difficult for me to be like, is this what I want to play?
Absolutely.
But I was very lucky. I had a phenomenal first session in high school but it just, I don't know. It can,
Yeah, and that'll set the tone for the whole thing.
it does, man. It's your job to make sure that these players have fun. And for a lot of people, you're
It's
going
really
to,
the most important part. of
more
the
so
DM's
than not,
job.
you're going to DM a first session in your life. And if you make it bad for that person, that's just someone who you could have gotten involved in a whole, awesome, beautiful world that just got turned off to for one bad experience.
And you got to carry that on your conscience for the rest of your D&D career.
Yeah. That was a good horror story.
Oh man.
That was a good one.
I'm also going to ban him from this podcast. He's not.
Yeah, he's banned from the podcast.
He's not allowed.
Yeah,
He's not
whoever
allowed
you
to
are.
Come
come
out
on
as a guest.
Wait, no. I think he should come on the podcast.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Let's invite him
Explain
on.
yourself, bitch.
You know what? Yeah, taking
Yeah,
that back.
tell me why you thought that was okay.
Yeah, I'm
Cleric,
gonna
if you're
watch
listening to this show somehow,
I want to bring that DM on too. I want to be like,
Yeah, I want to talk. Let's
What
bring
were you
them all
thinking?
in. Let's
go
get
follow us on Curmudgeons and Dragons on Instagram and send us a DM. We'll get you on the show.
Yeah, just don't send us your DM. That's a direct message. Don't send us your dungeon master.
Yeah.
Like I see the kind of person that might do that.
yeah, no, we have enough of those.
Yeah.
Way too
All
many.
right, I guess it's
Justin,
time for mine.
I've been waiting all week to hear this story.
All right, mine's
very excited.
mine's short and sweet. It is called "Why We Don't Play with Cody Anymore." It's about 11 sentences. So, quotes: Guys, meet our new player, Cody. Cody makes a gnome illusionist. We are found by the half dragon that has been hunting us. Cody takes the MacGuffin and yells, "I wish to abandon my friends to help you." The baddie destroys our item and teleports away. The party fights Cody's character. Cody becomes very upset in real life that his gnome is being treated in this way. He says he was just acting in character. We reply, "So are we." With Cody's gnome at negative 10 HP, we look to the GM. Cody's gnome is no more. "You earned this," he says, with this crazed glare at the GM. A wet-sounding fart erupts, and we had to clear the apartment due to toxic stench. Cody then moved his car to where he was blocking the rest of us in the GM's driveway and walked home. And that's it. So I guess TLDR.
Where does Cody live?
Hopefully close. I guess they invited this guy to play with them for the first time, and then he made one bad role-playing decision, and they decided to murder his character in PvP. So Cody shit himself, and then parked his car sideways along the driveway so nobody could get out, and just left.
What?
What's the bigger dick move? Blocking the cars in or shitting your pants on purpose?
The cars.
It's the
I don't care
cars.
if you pick yourself.
If you shit your own pants,
I gotta
like,
go to work
I'll-
the next day.
Yeah.
It's the cars.
I mean, it's your pants.
Yeah, if
Because
you
it's
shit
hot.
your
It's hot.
pants, like, yeah, I think it smells, but I can walk away from that.
Yeah. The real dick move would be shitting somebody else's pants.
Exactly.
That
Why
would
are
be
Which requires like 2 deck saves.
the real bad move.
I'm gonna say
Sleight
it
of
again.
hand.
I blame the DM and then the player.
Bro, I'm on Cody's side like 110% in this story.
in
How do you
honestly.
blame the DM for the guy shitting his pants?
Because that's not. I'm not talking about the IRL thing. I'm thinking the thing that led to that. In what scenario do you have that you invite this guy to play with you, and then he wants to switch sides, and you're just like, yeah, I guess we'll try to allow it, and then they fight each other. Like, what kind of like rash? Like, how do you get to that point?
And it's not even really like he tried to allow it. Cody was just like, oh, I like this guy. He doesn't seem like a bad guy. And then the guy just destroys their item. I have no idea what the item is. It's not mentioned. in the story.
Apparently, control over his sphincter was his item.
And then they just murder this new player who at negative 10 HP is dead. So I guess these are first level characters
He
fighting
has to
a
be because
half-dragon.
it wants over your health. So negative 10 just outright kills you.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's role play reasons to try to side with the bad guy.
Yeah, I get
But,
that.
like, and like, you know, in a story this short, we don't have any of the backstory. We don't know if he was aligned evil or anything like that. So like, we're just going to assume that him joining the bad guy was him being an IRL edgelord.
But also, like, you have to think about in character, like, if one of your party members all of a sudden is like, hey, you actually don't seem like a bad guy, like, take this from me, like, if you take this, like, I'll join your side. If I was one of the other people in the party, I'd be like, well, I guess we gotta kill you too now, like, if you're gonna switch sides, right? I'd be like, surprise!
Yeah, that's the natural progression.
That's
there.
understandable. Yeah.
If you're gonna screw things up by trying to join the bad guy, you know, you should expect a little bit of retaliation from at least the good aligned players.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I just can't get past, this was this dude's first session with them.
Yeah.
They must be at first level.
Right.
They're fighting a half dragon.
Oh, I'm not saying that this is probably the case. I'm saying this would be a reason to do that.
Yeah.
Clearly, they're not at that point.
I'm going to throw this out there. I think the guy from your story, Jason, is Cody.
Oh my
Yes,
God.
It's possible.
Wouldn't that be
But
something?
I feel,
Storms out.
but I have more sympathy for him in this story than I do.
Cody was like, well, I can't destroy things anymore at stores.
Oh
so
my
I'll
God.
just destroy things at people's houses, including my
Yeah,
own
like your
asshole.
first level. I mean, I guess I get
But,
the
like-
decision for like, hey, I want to like hang out with a dragon. That seems really cool. Like you're new to D&D.
It's his first. It's
But,
his
like,
first session. Like,
You know, regardless of the in-game stuff that happened, like that 100% could have like been handled better. But to then shit your pants and then block everybody into the driveway so that they
oh
couldn't
man,
leave.
I respect the shit out of that. Like,
Yeah.
that is.
He also apparently
honestly-
respected the shit out of himself.
Dude, he Babe Ruthed it. He Bambino. He called it. He was like, "You deserve what I'm about to do."
You
And then,
deserve-
boom,
I fucking respect what Cody did.
like, that was an on-command action.
How long do you think he was holding that in? Like, how long do you? At what point in that battle was he like, I have to release a really wet fart? Like,
I don't know, man.
How long do I keep this?
I admire that talent, just to be able to shit on command if you have to.
But like, then he got in his car to move the car to block everybody. Like, now you're just sitting in your own filth.
I imagine that Cody was a heavier set fella with a bad diet. So he probably just has messy shits like on deck in general.
Is they said he walked home, so he lives close enough to walk home.
He must live close.
So they're gonna see him again.
Gotta see.
Imagine
And
if
dude,
that was
I
his neighbor.
I read
walking
the comment. There's like
close.
300 comments on this story, and most of it is just like, why don't you just get his car towed?
Yeah.
I'm like, everyone's
obviously,
ignoring
yeah.
the pants shitting aspect of the story.
Well, because everybody's like, well, we can't really do anything about that part.
You know, you change, it's over, it happens. If you block all of us in my driveway, we can't go to work, we can't go anywhere. Like that's the real horror story.
man, drive
The
on your
car
lawn,
thing
whatever.
is the problem we can deal with. Like you can deal with that. You make a phone call, you tow the car. I can't process a guy shitting his pants in front of me on purpose and telling
You
me
don't
I deserve
process it.
and telling me I deserve it.
You deserve it.
You don't
Like,
process it. You just go, okay.
That's
and
gonna
you
sit
leave.
in my brain for like a long time. But do I deserve this? I'm gonna internalize that.
That's what you get for killing my character.
Yeah, that's what you get for PCing, dude, or PK.
Yeah,
You
it was
deserve this.
that is a hardcore devotion. I mean, I suppose when people die, they do shit themselves. So
Yeah.
I guess that's just great role play.
He role played right to the end.
Yes. Everybody in that story is at fault. I agree, Josie.
I don't think the players are at fault.
But I
No,
like
absolutely not.
I like Cody. I'm on his side, honestly, in this one.
I'm
I don't
definitely not
often
Team Cody.
I don't
You should
often
pass and
take-
block my driveway. I'm not Team Cody.
I can't in good conscience be Team Cody on this one.
I'm Team Cody all the way. I don't often take the problem player's side, but I feel for him. I'm like, and his just devotion to revenge. I'm like, good. Fuck yeah, go Cody.
I just have
Are
one
you Cody?
question for you.
I am not Cody. No, I've never.
What if it
purposely
was
shit my
your
pants.
house that he shit in? Because like I'm assuming he was
I'd be
sitting in
mad.
like somebody's chair.
Honestly, if
it was his house,
if I was running a
wouldn't have
game
problem
and one of
with
my
it.
players purposefully shit themselves,
because
And
they got
said you
killed.
deserve
I don't even
this.
think I'd be mad. I'd be flabbergasted.
I'd be
So
fuming.
next
I just
game's
feel
at
like-
Justin's house. Got it.
I would defenestrate them in a moment.
Yeah.
Which for people
That's-
that
that
didn't
means
take
throw
Latin,
them
that
out of
means
a
throw
window,
them out of
right?
Yes.
Yes,
that's
we
what
all
that
took
meant.
SATs.
Yeah,
I live on the
there
third
too.
floor, so I wouldn't defenestrate them because they'd die.
Well, if I deserve the shit stain on my chair, maybe they deserve a few broken bones.
Yeah, I think if somebody just shit their pants and then left my apartment and moved their car so that I can't get my car out of my driveway,
I'd be furious.
I don't really know how to react.
I would
think
walk
I'd just
to
be
Cody's
shocked.
house.
Oh, I would have.
You wouldn't. I know you wouldn't be cleaning that chair, saying, "You know what? I'm Team
No,
Cody."
I
you
like
would.
to imagine that Cody stood up when he yelled.
No, he
deserve this,"
didn't.
Like
No.
proudly stood. You deserve this. And then just
No, I think he
stared
just-
them in the eyes as he.
I think he
shit
just
in
did
his
the
pants.
lean. You know, the lean to let it out.
Yes.
I think he just did that,
Oh, 100% he
and then
leaned.
dropped a depth charge.
100% he did the shit lean.
But that's how I like to picture it. He just stands proudly. You deserve this.
You
and just
deserve this.
Fills his underwear with diarrhea.
And you know
like
he watched Joker the night before and tried to have that moment.
You get what you fucking
You
deserve.
get what
At
you
least
fucking
he didn't-
deserve.
What do you get when you take a mentally ill loner and combine him with a society?
doesn't give a shit about him.
With poor fiber in their diet.
Garbage.
Yeah.
That would have been such a
Cody,
better,
you're also invited on the show.
Such a better climax of Joker, honestly. If instead of shooting him, he just shit his pants and then walked off stage.
Cody has several questions for you. If you want to be on the show, shoot us a DM.
Cody, yes, please call us if you know that the story is about you.
Shoot us a DM, not a BM.
Hey-yo.
Hey, yeah, don't need any more BMs from you, Cody.
I mean, the progression is really what I'm a fan of. I went from like, oh, you had to sit around for an hour and a half to like, oh, weird role playing decisions to, oh, a guy storming off to like, it really went from like, okay scenario to worst case scenario.
We just wanted to cover all the bases.
Yeah, let's TLDR this podcast real quick. We have bad DM, room night physics, expanding in Pit Fiend's asshole, bad player, pants shitting,
bad
guy who shits himself. There's no way he did that without making eye contact. There's no way.
That's what I'd like to imagine.
Wait,
0% chance that he breaks eye contact that whole time.
And the force of trying to let the fart out, he went.
It's like his eyes like close or cross,
like,
or I just
like his face all scrunched up.
Do you think he like didn't quite have one in the chamber ready, and he was like grunting? It's like, you deserve this.
He definitely
Hold on.
Yeah.
I want to talk to Cody.
I mean, if we want to be petty, let's be fucking petty. Like Cody
is all the way.
Cody's the prince of petty.
Yes, I want to talk to Cody. I want to hear about.
Yes,
I want to know.
Cody and Bad Cleric, you're absolutely welcome on the show. Go ahead and send us a DM. It's Instagram at Curmudgeons and Dragons. Oh man, I think we're out of time. Let's wrap this thing up.
We've been
I think that was
fun.
Great.
This is a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun. This is way more fun than I thought it was going to be, and I thought it was going to be fun.
Yeah,
that was a delight.
I'm awkward as fuck, and I'm very much enjoying this. So
follow us on Instagram at Curmudgeons and Dragons. If you don't know how to spell it, take the SATs, and they'll teach you how to spell it.
Or Google it. You can Google it too.
You can Google it too.
Google is your
Google will
friend.
fix it for you. But at Curmudgeons and Dragons on Instagram. I don't think we're going to mess around with much other social media. If there's a place you really want to see us, shoot us a DM on there, or this is going to be on YouTube as well. You can leave a comment on there. We'll take a look at that. Otherwise, you can send us your horror stories or suggestions, or really just tell us what you think. You can send it over to curmudgeonsanddragonspod@gmail.com. We got a couple cool ideas for the show. Next week, I think we're going to build a character together. That's going to be a lot of fun. And if you have other things that we could talk about, other things we can do, absolutely open to your suggestions. So, but until next time, Josie, Justin, Jack, guys, thanks for joining me. My name is Jason.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, for having us here.
We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to Curmudgeons and Dragons. Our hosts are Jason Portizo, Justin Franco, Jack O'Connell, and Josie Diaz. Produced and edited by Jason Portizo. Theme music is Crunk Night by Kevin MacLeod. Link to the song and license information can be found in the podcast show notes and YouTube description. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and leave a rating. Curmudgeons and Dragons is a JTP audio production. Practice safe adventuring, and remember, don't trust the bard with a twinkle in his eye.
This has been a JTP Audio podcast. Thanks for listening.